right, I want to start today with a phrase that has been doing the rounds in the industry for a while. It's been rattling around my head for a while, and like a dog with a bone, I couldn't let it go. You've probably seen some version of it somewhere online, but the overarching statement that was made recently was cash flow over status. Don't chase the flash, chase the numbers, build for substance, not for show. And it comes up constantly from a lot of larger mainstream property gurus, the same fellas over and over and over again, and every time it goes round it gets a great reception, and I genuinely sit here and scratch my head. On the face of it, fine, it sounds wise, doesn't it? That we should chase the numbers, that we should build for substance, that we shouldn't be doing this for the show or for the status. That sounds like sound advice. It sounds like that person has got everything figured out. And you read their comments and you read their posts or you listen to what it is they have to say, and you're nodding along and you're thinking, do you know what? That's actually pretty good advice. Yeah, you should not chase the flashy stuff. But then I was sitting with it for a wee while longer than they probably would have hoped that I did. And something about it just didn't seem right with me. Because there's something incredibly and somewhat funny about that line coming from the world it comes from. The property education world, the guru world, the whole circus of it sells you one thing above everything else, and it's not cash flow. The world of property sells you status. The entire machine of property runs on status. So forgive me if I don't fully buy that these guys are saying chase cash flow over status, because these very people, their entire brand is built off the performance of being rich. And that's essentially what I want to talk to you about today. I think that there's a trap sitting in the middle of the property industry that catches good people, smart people, and people who, to be perfectly frank, should know better. And I want to attempt to pull it apart properly in today's podcast episode. And I'm calling it the performative wealth trap. By the end of this, I want you nodding along, but for the right reasons this time. Allow me to set the scene for you. You've definitely seen these guys online. You cannot avoid them. They're the type of guys who they're shooting reels and they're filmed leaning against a car that may or may not have been hired for the day. I don't know. They've got the watch held up at the camera just for the right angle. They've got the big house in the back shot. They've got the supercar, or maybe it's the private jet, or maybe it's the claims of, I made 6 figures while you were sleeping. One of these guys actually bought himself a castle, sank an absolute fortune into it, couldn't get the planning through, ended up having to flog it off at auction for a fraction of what he bought it for. And the maddest part about all of that, the castle was content. The castle was his content. The buying of that castle was content. The struggle with that castle was content. Even the loss that he took got turned into, here's what the failure taught me video. Every single bit of that was a performance. It was pantomime. And what I really need you to understand, because this is genuinely the bit that actually matters, none of that was about cash flow. All of that was about status. It was the look of wealth. It was, alluding to the costume of success. And the reason these people do it, and the reason it works, is because they're not actually selling you property knowledge. They're selling you a feeling. They are selling you a feeling. They are selling you fantasy that if you buy the course, then you too can get that car and you too can own the castle. And they dangle that status because the status is the bait. So when these same people turn around and then preach, oh, no, you should focus on cash flow over status, what I hear is people who have built their entire empires on selling status now telling you to ignore it. And if I'm honest, I find that a little bit rich. And there's no pun intended there. And in the interest of being fair, I'll try to be fair. And, I'm not here just to throw rocks for the sake of it, because the words themselves are not actually wrong. Cash flow does matter more than status. And I'm a massive advocate for that. Cash is king every day of the week. So on that note, they're right. But the problem isn't the sentence. The problem is who it's aimed at and what it conveniently leaves out. Here's the thing. The advice that they're claiming of stop chasing status, chase cash flow is aimed at people who are sitting there and who want the Lamborghini. And I'll be honest with you, the type of people that I work with, the people that I work with inside the six-figure sourcing blueprint, the people who listen to this show, you are not the type of people who are sitting at home desperately craving a Lamborghini. You're just not. Let me tell you who you actually are, because I know you. You are most likely a corporate professional, or at one point in time from a corporate background, maybe running a small business of your own. You're good at your job, probably too good, which is the exact reason why you keep getting more and more responsibility. You're probably up before the rest of the house. Every day you're out the door. You're either on a train or you're sitting in traffic on the motorway. You've done 10,000 miles. You know, you get that Sunday night fear and dread that creeps in at about 5 or 6 o'clock on a Sunday. You know, that low impending doom that they say comes right before a heart attack. That's what you get on a Sunday. You know, your weekends are nearly gone, and Monday means, well, back to the grindstone. And you don't want a castle. You have never once lain awake at night wanting a castle. What you want, what actually keeps you up, is a smaller and, well, it's far more important than any of that. You want to do the school run without checking your watch. You want to be at the thing, the sports days or the assembly masses, or there's a million things going on in my kids' school at the moment. And frankly, sometimes I wish I didn't have the freedom to go to them, but I do. But you want to be there for the wee everyday moments that don't come around too often. You want a Tuesday afternoon randomly just to be yours. You don't want to feel that impending doom on a Sunday night. That's the prize for you. So when these dip online wave a supercar at you, it doesn't actually impact you or affect you. I hope not, because they've misunderstood what it is that you're chasing. You were never looking to be rich or chase the look of be rich. You're chasing your time back. You're chasing your freedom back. You're chasing what I have been banging on about since day one. You're chasing Monday mornings that feel like lazy Saturday afternoons. And that really is the real contrast of what I want to draw for you on the podcast today, because it goes deeper than supercars and fancy watches and castles. It goes right to the heart of the actual advice that they give. So let's look at what they're actually telling people to do. Because alongside of all the chase cash flow, not status talk, your everyday bog standard guru answer for somebody starting from scratch is go and build a portfolio of buy-to-lets. Do it properly. And again, it's not that that's wrong. Buy-to-lets are a perfectly great asset to own. I've nothing against it. In fact, my entire portfolio is, I'd say, 98% made up of buy-to-lets. But stop and think about what that path actually asks of you. To build a portfolio of buy-to-lets, you need money. You need deposits, and not one deposit, lots of them. You need savings that you maybe don't have because you're spending your money on living. You need to take on debt. You need years. You're talking about a slow, capital heavy grind where you put your own money on the line, property by property, and somewhere along the road, if the wind blows the right way, you've built enough cash flow to maybe think about leaving the job. Meanwhile, what are you doing every single Monday between now and that far off day? Well, you're still sitting doing the commute Monday through to Friday. You're still handing over your time. That impending doom, dread and fear doesn't go anywhere. You've just signed up for a very long, very expensive wait. Do people not see this? But here's where I get to the bit that the gurus with castles will never tell you, because it doesn't need a course full of upsells and it doesn't photograph too well on a super yacht. You do not need to own a single brick to get your time back. That is the whole thing. That is what sourcing is. You learn to find the deals that, genuinely good investment deals, and you get paid a handsome fee by investors to hand them over. You're not buying the property. You're not putting up the deposit. You're not waiting 20 years for the cash flow to stack up. You're getting paid now, this month, for a skill that you can build into something that replaces your salary far faster than any portfolio grind ever will, unless you're prepared to play the very, very long game, and unless you have significant amounts of capital behind you. You're being paid for what you know and who you know with sourcing. I'm going to say that again. You're being paid, and paid very well, for what you know and who you know. And that, for my money, is a far more honest answer to how do I get freedom back than go and buy a load of buy-to-lets and we'll see how you're getting on in a decade. So let me put the two words side by side for you as plainly as I possibly can. One word, world, sells you the status dressed up as success. It's the car, it's the watch, it's the castle, it's the highlight reel, it's everything in between. And even when they tell you to ignore status, the path that they point you down still needs your money. It still needs significant years, and it needs significant patience. And you stay exactly where you are for that significant period of time, dreading every Monday morning. The other world, my world, the world that I live in, the one I'd ask you to look at property, isn't selling you a look at all. It's selling you a skill that you can use to get paid by investors without owning anything, to replace the income that is currently now chaining you to the job, and to actually buy back the only thing that ever mattered to you in the first place, which is your time, which is a Tuesday afternoon, which is the school run, which is anything else in between that you want to do. It's not cash flow over status. I'll go one better than a lot of the gurus. It's time over everything else. Time is the only thing none of us can get any more of. And it's the only one thing that the supercar dickheads cannot sell you, because they are too busy filming in their supercars. They are too busy telling you about castles. They are too busy talking to you about watches. So if you have been sitting there and feeling a wee bit deflated, scrolling past these posts, looking at the castles, looking at the watches and thinking, that's just not me, I don't want that, then I want you to hear me loud and clear on this podcast today. You were right all along. It was never you. You were not lacking ambition. You had really better taste what freedom actually looks like. You have better taste in what freedom looks like. You wanted the real thing. You did not want the pantomime costume, okay? And I want you to understand this. Now look, I am doing something about this in person, and if today resonated with you, if it got you thinking, if it got the wheels in motion in your head, I want you to listen to me. On the 4th of July, I am hosting my in-person mastermind event in Belfast at the Merchant Hotel. There's no supercars in the car park. There's no performance. There's no fantasy. It's just the actual nuts and bolts of how you build a sourcing business that pays you properly and gets you out of the Sunday night dread for good. I'll have people in the room who have already done it, who've stood where you're standing, train ticket in hand, and they've walked away from it. So if you want in, here's all you have to do. Reply to me with the word Belfast. Drop it into my DMs. Reply to the email that comes with today's podcast. Simply reply Belfast with however you found me and send me that one word, and my team will get you all the details. There's a handful of general admission tickets, and there are 2 VIP tickets left. VIP spots are limited because the whole point is that it stays small enough to actually be useful to you. That's it from me today. Go and have a think about what it is that you're really chasing. I bet you it's not the castle. In fact, I promise you it was not the castle. I will see you on next week's episode. And if you want to be with me in the room in Belfast and touch people who are actually doing this in a non-weird way, find me on Instagram. I am Danielle Bell Property. Find me on Facebook, Danielle Bell. Reply to my emails with the word Belfast and we will get you across all the information. Have a great weekend.